Most people believe success comes from being seen. They think if you announce your plans loudly enough, the world will make room for them. They think visibility creates value. They think talking about what they are doing makes it real. That is the myth. Not silence as weakness, but silence as strength. Not secrecy out of fear, but privacy out of wisdom. The truth is quieter than the myth. Real progress does not need an audience. Real work does not ask for applause. Real growth happens when no one is watching, when no one is clapping, when no one is validating you. Ask yourself this. How many people talk about what they will do, yet never do it? How many announce new goals every month, yet remain in the same place every year? Talking feels like movement, but it is not movement. It is comfort. It gives the mind a reward before the work is done. It tricks you into feeling productive without producing anything. That is why the rule is simple. Never tell people what you do. Let the results speak when they arrive. Let the work stay quiet while it grows strong. There is a reason the deepest roots grow in darkness. A tree does not announce its growth. It does not explain its plans. It does not seek approval from the forest. It goes down before it goes up. It strengthens itself underground where no one can see it. And because of that, when storms come, it stands. Most people want the leaves without the roots. They want recognition without preparation. They want celebration without construction. But the law of life does not change for anyone. What is built in silence lasts longer than what is built in noise. When you tell people what you are doing too early, you invite opinions before you have proof. You invite doubt before you have confidence. You invite pressure before you have structure. And pressure at the wrong time collapses fragile things. You do not protect a seed by placing it on a stage. You protect it by placing it in soil, covered, hidden, patient. That is how growth begins. There is a quiet law working at all times. Preparation meets opportunity. Opportunity does not come to the loudest voice. It comes to the most prepared mind. You do not rise to the level of your announcements. You rise to the level of your preparation. When preparation is deep, opportunity feels natural. When preparation is shallow, opportunity feels overwhelming. That is why some people panic when a door opens. They talked their way to the door, but they did not work their way to readiness. Pressure does not create character. It reveals it. When life applies pressure, your habits show themselves. Your thinking shows itself. Your discipline shows itself. Look at the athlete who trained quietly every morning while others slept. When the competition arrives, the pressure feels familiar. The body knows what to do. The mind stays calm. Now look at the person who talked about training, but skipped the work. When pressure arrives, panic arrives with it. The body hesitates. The mind looks for excuses. Same pressure, different preparation. Think of a small business owner who spent years learning their craft, studying finances, refining systems, and improving service without announcing every step. When the market shifts, they adapt. They adjust prices. They improve value. They survive. Then think of another who spent more time posting plans than building skills. When the market shifts, confusion follows, blame follows. The difference was not luck. It was invisible work. Focus is fragile. Distraction is aggressive. If you do not protect your focus, the world will take it from you. Every opinion, every comment, every question pulls a little energy away from the work. That is why you must guard your attention like gold. Not everything deserves access to your process. Not everyone deserves insight into your direction. Your vision needs quiet to mature. Your focus needs space to deepen. When you speak less, you hear more. You hear your own thinking. You notice your own patterns. You correct small mistakes before they become large ones. Noise hides errors. Silence reveals them. And correction in silence is easier than correction in public. Protect your focus by limiting explanations. Protect your focus by limiting announcements. Protect your focus by letting your calendar reflect your priorities, not your promises. Growth follows a sequence. Learn first. Apply what you learn. Evaluate what happens. Correct what is wrong. Persist through discomfort. Most people break the sequence. They learn, but do not apply. Or they apply once and quit. Or they never evaluate honestly. Quiet workers respect the sequence. They study without showing off. They apply without seeking praise. They evaluate without ego. They correct without drama. They persist without complaint. That is why their progress looks sudden to outsiders. It was not sudden. It was silent. Discipline outperforms motivation every time. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is structural. Motivation depends on mood. Discipline depends on decision. When you tell people what you are going to do, you lean on motivation. When you stop telling people and start building systems, you lean on discipline. Systems do not care how you feel. They run whether you are excited or tired. They show up even when applause disappears. Strategic patience is the ability to work without immediate reward. Seasons teach this lesson. You plant in one season and harvest in another. You do not dig up seeds every week to check progress. You wait. You water. You protect. Quiet work respects seasons. Loud work demands instant results. And when results do not come fast, loud workers quit. Quiet workers stay. Feedback matters. Measurement matters. But feedback does not need to be public. You measure privately. You adjust quietly. You refine daily. Improvement is a series of small corrections, not a single dramatic change. When you measure honestly, you grow steadily. When you perform publicly, you defend mistakes instead of fixing them. Silence makes correction easier. Momentum builds when actions repeat. Small wins compound. Habits stack. The flywheel turns slowly at first. Each push feels heavy. No one notices. Then, speed builds. Energy multiplies. Results appear. Outsiders call it a breakthrough. You call it consistency. Breakthrough is not an event. It is a lifestyle of showing up without announcing yourself. And when you finally do not need to tell people what you do, something shifts inside you. Your confidence becomes quiet. Your presence becomes steady. You no longer need validation to continue. You no longer need approval to persist. You move differently. You speak less. You work more. You listen deeper. You choose better. This is the discipline of silence, not hiding, not fear, but wisdom. Let your work introduce you. Let your results explain you. Let your consistency speak for you. Build in private, grow in silence. And when the time comes, the world will notice without being told. Because truth does not need an announcement. It arrives fully formed, carrying the weight of everything you did when no one was watching. And it stands on its own without explanation. Because by the time people see it, the work has already been done. The habits have already been formed. The systems have already been tested. And the direction is already clear. And you move forward, not seeking attention, not seeking approval, but continuing the quiet discipline that brought you this far, knowing that the real power was never in what you said, but in what you did when you said nothing at all. And as you continue this path, you begin to understand that silence is not empty. It is full of focus, full of intention, full of controlled energy. And that energy compounds day after day, decision after decision, shaping your character, shaping your future, and shaping the kind of life that does not need to be explained because it can be observed, and that observation creates its own respect, its own authority, its own calm influence. And you carry that influence forward into every season that follows, prepared for pressure, ready for opportunity, grounded in discipline, patient with time, and committed to the work itself rather than the noise around it. And that commitment deepens as challenges increase, because challenges no longer threaten your identity. They simply test your systems, and you return to the same quiet process again and again. Learn, apply, evaluate, correct, persist without complaint, without display, understanding that this cycle is not temporary, it is permanent. And living this way changes how you see success, how you see effort, how you see yourself, because you no longer measure your worth by what others know about you, but by how faithfully you show up to your own standards each day. And that faithfulness becomes your anchor when uncertainty appears, when doubt whispers, when comparison tempts you to speak, to explain, to announce, and you resist, because you know that speaking too early steals energy from doing, and you guard that energy carefully, investing it back into the work, into refinement, into patience, into discipline, until eventually the distance between who you are and who you aim to be closes, not through declarations, but through repetition. And at that point, silence is no longer something you practice. It is something you embody, a calm confidence that does not rush, does not chase, does not prove, but simply continues, one focused day at a time, building a life that stands quietly strong, long after the noise has faded, long after the talk has stopped, long after the promises have been forgotten, because what remains is not words, but structure, not intention, but execution, not attention, but substance. And that substance carries you forward into the next phase, where the same rules apply, where the same discipline is required, where the same silence protects the next level of growth, and you step into it without hesitation, without announcement, ready to do the work again, knowing that this is how lasting progress is made. And this is how you continue moving forward. Even when no one is watching, even when no one is listening, even when no one knows what you are doing, because you know. And that is enough to keep going, enough to keep building, enough to keep refining as the quiet work continues and the next lesson begins to unfold slowly, steadily, without rush, without noise. Just focused effort moving forward into the work that still remains. And as that work deepens, you begin to see how every small choice connects to a larger pattern, how every disciplined day feeds the future you are constructing, and how silence gives you the clarity to see those connections clearly, without distortion, without distraction, and with that clarity, you adjust your pace, your priorities, your expectations, aligning them not with external timelines, but with internal readiness. And this alignment reduces friction, reduces anxiety, reduces the urge to explain yourself to anyone. Because explanation becomes unnecessary when direction is firm. And as direction firms, your actions simplify, your decisions sharpen, and your energy concentrates, creating a steady forward pull that feels calm but powerful. And you trust this pull more than any promise you could make out loud, because it is built on evidence, on consistency, on lived experience, not on hope alone. And that trust allows you to stay the course when others waver, when others change direction, when others seek shortcuts, and you watch quietly as those shortcuts collapse, as those loud declarations fade, reinforcing your commitment to the quieter path, the longer path, the one that demands patience and rewards depth. And this depth becomes your advantage, because depth cannot be copied quickly. Depth cannot be faked easily. Depth reveals itself only over time. And you are willing to give time what it needs, because you understand that time works for those who respect it, not those who rush it. And respecting time means respecting silence, respecting process, respecting the daily discipline that accumulates into something meaningful, something stable, something that lasts. And as you continue to move forward in this way, you carry less urgency to be seen and more commitment to be solid, less desire to be heard, and more intention to be effective. And that shift marks a turning point in how you operate, how you think, how you respond to challenges, because you are no longer reacting to the world. You are steadily constructing your place within it. And that construction continues quietly, step by step, decision by decision, as the work unfolds further, deeper into the path ahead, where the next layer of growth waits to be built in the same silent, disciplined way, without announcements, without explanations, just steady effort moving forward into what comes next. And that is where the real test continues, not in the moments of recognition, but in the long stretches between them, where silence returns and you remain there comfortably, continuing to work, continuing to refine, continuing to persist as the process carries on, inviting you to go further still, deeper into the work that remains unfinished. And you step into that unfinished space willingly, knowing that this is where progress truly lives, and that you are prepared to stay here as long as necessary, because silence has taught you patience, discipline has taught you endurance, and the work itself has taught you who you are becoming. And that becoming is still in motion, still evolving, still requiring attention, effort, and restraint. And so you remain here, focused, calm, committed, as the next phase of the journey continues to open in front of you. Waiting not for your words, but for your actions to carry it forward. And as you move forward in this quiet way, something important becomes clear. Silence is not passive. Silence is active restraint. It is choosing not to spend energy where it produces no return. Every explanation costs energy. Every announcement costs focus. Every attempt to convince costs momentum. When you stop telling people what you do, that energy stays with you. It returns to the work. It sharpens your thinking. It steadies your hands. Ask yourself honestly, how much energy have you spent explaining plans that never happened? How many conversations drained motivation instead of strengthening it? How many opinions entered your mind before your own idea was fully formed? Silence closes that door. It keeps your internal environment clean. And a clean internal environment produces better decisions. When you work quietly, you begin to notice patterns others miss. You see how small habits shape large outcomes. You see how one skipped action weakens the entire system. You see how one disciplined choice strengthens everything connected to it. This awareness grows because your mind is not busy managing impressions. It is busy managing process. And process is where mastery lies. Preparation continues even when progress feels slow. This is where many people break. They mistake slow progress for failure. They mistake quiet for stagnation. But slow is not stuck. Quiet is not empty. Quiet is often full of adjustment, full of learning, full of internal strengthening. Just because results are not visible does not mean growth is not happening. In fact, the most important growth is often invisible. Pressure will test this understanding again and again. Pressure asks a simple question. Did you build this for appearance or for function? When stress arrives, appearances collapse quickly. Function remains. The person who built systems instead of stories adapts. The person who built discipline instead of excitement endures. Pressure exposes whether your foundation was real. Think of someone who spent years developing a skill quietly, improving incrementally, refining technique, correcting errors without broadcasting progress. When a major opportunity appears, they do not rush. They do not panic. They simply step into it, not because they are special, but because they are ready. Readiness looks calm. Unpreparedness looks loud. Distraction will always invite you back to noise. It will suggest that visibility equals value. It will whisper that if people do not know what you are doing, it does not matter. This is false. What matters is not who knows. What matters is what works. Focus is not about doing more. It is about protecting what matters most. Silence is one of the strongest forms of protection. When you reduce what you say, your standards increase. You stop promising. You start measuring. You stop explaining. You start correcting. You stop performing. You start building. This shift changes how you experience effort. Effort becomes less emotional and more intentional. You no longer ask how you feel. You ask what the system requires today, and then you do it. The growth sequence repeats endlessly. Learn, apply, evaluate, correct, persist. Silence supports every step. You learn better when you are not distracted by opinions. You apply more honestly when no one is watching. You evaluate more accurately when ego is not involved. You correct faster when you are not defending yourself. You persist longer when you are not seeking approval. This is why quiet workers outlast loud ones. Discipline becomes your language, not spoken, but lived. Discipline shows up in how you manage time, how you manage attention, how you manage rest. Discipline does not announce itself. It reveals itself through consistency, through reliability, through calm execution. Over time, discipline creates trust. Not because you said you would do something, but because you did it repeatedly. Strategic patience deepens here. You stop rushing outcomes. You stop forcing timelines. You stop comparing chapters. You understand that growth has its own pace, and that pace cannot be negotiated with noise. Some seasons are for building, some are for waiting, some are for refining, some are for harvesting. Silence helps you recognize the season you are in, instead of reacting emotionally to where others appear to be. Feedback remains essential, but feedback does not require an audience. Measurement does not require applause. You review your results honestly. You look at what worked. You look at what failed. You adjust quietly. No drama. No justification. Just correction. This approach removes fear from feedback. Feedback becomes information, not identity. And information is useful. Momentum builds slowly, then steadily. The flywheel turns. Each disciplined day adds weight. Each correction reduces friction. Each quiet repetition strengthens capacity. One day, the movement feels easier. Not because the work changed, but because you changed. Strength accumulated. Skill sharpened. Judgment matured. And that maturity came from staying silent long enough to listen to the work itself. Breakthrough is often misunderstood. It is not a moment of explosion. It is a moment of alignment. When your habits, skills, timing, and patience finally line up, outsiders see the moment. They do not see the years. They hear the result. They do not hear the silence that built it. But you know, and knowing is enough. Living this way reshapes your identity. You stop identifying as someone who plans. You become someone who executes. You stop seeking motivation. You build routines. You stop chasing inspiration. You rely on structure. This identity is stable. It does not rise and fall with attention. It does not depend on praise. It continues regardless of mood. There will be moments when you are tempted to explain yourself, when others misunderstand your quiet, when they question your pace, when they doubt your direction. Silence does not mean you never speak. It means you choose when speaking adds value. Most of the time, action adds more. Results add more. Consistency adds more. Over time, questions fade. Silence also teaches humility. When you are not talking about what you do, You become more aware of how much you still have to learn. You remain teachable. You remain curious. You remain open to correction. Loud certainty often blocks growth. Quiet confidence leaves room for improvement, and improvement is the goal. As this way of working continues, your emotional state stabilizes. Less comparison, less anxiety, less urgency. You focus on inputs you control: effort, attention, discipline, patience. These become your anchors. External noise loses influence. Internal standards gain power. You trust yourself more because you keep promises to yourself, not because you announce them to others. Eventually, people may notice. They may ask how it happened. They may call it luck. They may call it talent. You do not correct them. You do not explain the process. You simply continue working. Explanation is unnecessary when momentum is present. The work speaks clearly enough. This approach scales. As challenges grow, the same principles apply. More responsibility requires more silence, not more noise. More complexity requires more focus, not more explanation. More opportunity requires more preparation, not more announcement. The higher you go, the more valuable silence becomes. And when setbacks appear, silence protects you again. You process privately. You correct quietly. You recover without performance. Setbacks become data, not drama. This keeps you moving forward, while others get stuck explaining failure instead of fixing it. Over time, you realize that silence is not about hiding from the world. It is about choosing where your energy goes. It is about respecting the work enough to protect it. It is about understanding that not everything meaningful needs to be shared while it is being built. This understanding brings peace, a steady peace, not excitement, not intensity, but grounded confidence. You know what you are doing. You know why you are doing it. And you know that progress does not require witnesses. It requires consistency. As you continue day after day, the habit of silence becomes natural. You do not force it. You do not think about it. You simply work. You let time do its job. You let discipline do its job. You let patience do its job. And you stay focused on what is directly in front of you. Eventually, the results align with the effort. Not perfectly, not all at once, but enough to confirm the path, enough to reinforce the discipline, enough to justify the silence. And when that happens, you do not celebrate loudly. You acknowledge quietly. And then you return to the work. Because this is the final truth. Never telling people what you do is not about secrecy. It is about respect. Respect for the process. Respect for time. Respect for your own focus. When you respect these things, they return value. They build something solid, something durable, something real. You see, the path of quiet work is not linear. There are moments when it feels slow, even invisible. You plant seeds that take weeks, months, or even years to show results. Yet each day you water, each day you nurture. Each day you protect what you are building. The small actions, repeated, accumulate into an unseen foundation. One day, without announcement, without fanfare, that foundation supports something far greater than you could have imagined at the start. And that is the compounding power of disciplined silence. Every choice to focus rather than explain, to act rather than announce, to correct rather than justify, strengthens this compounding effect. You begin to notice how seemingly minor adjustments produce outsized outcomes over time. A better habit, a slightly sharper skill, a clearer system. These do not create instant recognition, but they create lasting capability. And when these capabilities finally converge, what others see as luck or sudden breakthrough is actually the product of long-term, disciplined, invisible work. Ask yourself this: how many people around you are impatient for recognition? How many seek applause before the work has been done? How many want credit before effort? When you step away from that cycle, when you commit to letting results emerge naturally, you free yourself from external validation. You become accountable only to the process, to the truth of your own effort, and to the standards you set. And that accountability is far more powerful than any external pressure could ever be. Pressure itself becomes a teacher. When challenges arise, you see clearly which systems are strong and which are weak. You see which habits can endure and which crumble under scrutiny. This is why quiet preparation matters. Not because it hides you from responsibility, but because it trains you to respond effectively when responsibility appears. You learn to be resilient, adaptable, and steady. And those who build publicly often discover these lessons too late, when mistakes are already visible and corrections are costly. Growth is also shaped by the deliberate avoidance of distraction. The world is filled with noise, constant demands for attention, invitations to perform, and endless comparisons. Every distraction that lures you away from focused work costs progress. Every opinion you internalize before it is useful costs clarity. Every conversation meant to prove something costs momentum. By refusing to announce your plans, by maintaining a quiet focus, you safeguard the energy necessary to deepen your skills, strengthen your systems, and refine your judgment. Persistence takes on a new dimension in this context. It is not raw stubbornness or blind repetition. It is mindful repetition, a cycle of learning, application, evaluation, correction, and persistence, repeated day after day, week after week, year after year. This is the sequence that creates mastery, that turns small, consistent efforts into substantial achievement. The public rarely sees this sequence, but it is the invisible engine of real progress. Discipline emerges as a natural byproduct of this approach. Motivation is fleeting. It rises and falls with mood, with opinion, with circumstance. Discipline, however, is structural. It is a framework that does not bend to emotion. It enforces consistency. It demands attention to detail. It keeps you moving when inspiration fades. And when you have trained yourself to rely on discipline rather than motivation, the noise of the world, opinions, judgment, recognition, loses power over your actions. Strategic patience deepens as well. You learn to wait for results in their own time, to respect the natural rhythm of growth. You understand the cycles of effort and reward. Some seasons are for laying foundations, others for refinement, others for harvesting the benefits of past effort. By remaining silent and committed, you align with these cycles rather than fighting them. You learn that timing often matters more than visibility. A well-timed harvest trumps a premature announcement every time. Feedback becomes more precise in this environment. Without the distraction of performance or defense, you can analyze outcomes with clarity. You can identify mistakes without ego. You can correct inefficiencies without drama. Every measurement, every adjustment strengthens the systems you rely upon. The results become inevitable because your process is strong, not because you have sought validation or applause along the way. Momentum compounds quietly. Each small success adds weight to the flywheel of progress. At first, the wheel turns slowly, requiring effort to keep it moving. But as systems mature, skills sharpen, and habits solidify, the wheel gains speed naturally. You feel the shift internally before anyone else notices. Others may label it a sudden breakthrough, but you know it is the natural consequence of persistent, disciplined, invisible work. And when momentum is established, it carries you through challenges, setbacks, and periods of uncertainty with remarkable steadiness. Breakthrough ceases to be a single event. It becomes a lifestyle. You stop chasing dramatic moments and instead cultivate continuous, incremental growth. Your emotional elevation is no longer tied to recognition, but to the mastery of your craft. You measure progress by the depth of your capability, the reliability of your systems, and the clarity of your judgment. Each day of focused work reinforces this internal standard, creating a feedback loop that is independent of external opinion. Living in this way transforms how you experience time. You begin to measure it by effort and learning, rather than by attention or applause. Each day becomes an opportunity to reinforce the systems that support your growth. You develop a rhythm, a cadence, a flow that prioritizes substance over show. And this rhythm naturally produces efficiency, clarity, and effectiveness. You accomplish more, not by working harder, but by working smarter, by directing energy toward what truly matters and ignoring what does not. Eventually, you realize that never telling people what you do is not about secrecy or avoidance. It is about focus, about energy management, about protecting the processes that create meaningful results. When you respect this principle, the work itself becomes your identity. Your results, when they emerge, carry their own authority. They do not require explanation. They do not require approval. They simply exist as proof of consistent, deliberate effort. Silence becomes a tool for both protection and amplification. By withholding premature announcements, you reduce unnecessary exposure to criticism, doubt, and distraction. By preserving your energy for action, you increase the impact of each step you take. By maintaining focus, you ensure that your systems and habits operate at peak efficiency. And by doing so, you allow the cumulative effects of consistent work to emerge fully, naturally, and powerfully. Over time, this approach creates a new relationship with effort itself. You no longer measure productivity by visible results or external validation. You measure it by engagement with your process, by adherence to your systems, and by the consistency of your attention. Work becomes its own reward because it is a direct reflection of your character, your discipline, and your commitment to growth. External recognition becomes secondary, almost incidental. When setbacks occur, you are prepared. You respond strategically without panic or explanation. You evaluate quietly, correct methodically, and persist steadily. Setbacks no longer derail you because your focus is internal, your process is robust, and your discipline is unwavering. Others may struggle publicly, seeking to justify mistakes, but you move forward silently, leveraging challenges as data points for refinement rather than excuses for complaint. The higher you go, the more valuable silence becomes. Greater responsibility, more complex systems, larger stakes, all demand greater focus and less performance. Speaking or announcing prematurely at higher levels carries exponentially higher risk. At these levels, results must speak for themselves. Reputation is built through consistency and impact, not through promises. Silence, when practiced deliberately, becomes the scaffolding upon which extraordinary achievement is constructed. As you continue to refine this practice, you discover a deeper form of confidence. It is not the loud confidence of recognition, but the calm confidence of competence. It is quiet because it is rooted in evidence, the repeated fulfillment of commitments to yourself, the steady execution of well-designed systems, the patient observation of growth over time. This confidence is resilient because it is independent of external opinion. It does not fluctuate with applause, criticism, or comparison. And in the culmination of this practice, you begin to see that success is less about what is known and more about what is done. It is less about being seen and more about being capable. Less about announcing, more about achieving. Less about talking, more about acting. And this understanding transforms every choice you make, every moment you commit to, every standard you set for yourself. It aligns your energy with purpose and maximizes the return on your effort. And as this practice becomes habitual, you begin to experience a profound shift in how you engage with the world. You are no longer distracted by the opinions of others, nor do you seek validation through explanation or announcement. Your attention is entirely on your own standards, your own systems, and the results that emerge from consistent action. You learn to value depth over appearance, substance over show, and progress over recognition. Each day becomes a deliberate investment in capability, not perception. You also discover that silence is a form of leverage. By choosing not to speak prematurely, you retain power over your own narrative. You control the timing of when results are revealed. You ensure that the impact of your work is experienced fully, rather than diluted by premature explanation. In essence, you are compounding not only effort, but influence. Others may not understand it immediately, but the effects become undeniable over time. This is how quiet action multiplies influence without noise. Your perspective on competition transforms as well. Most people compete for attention, for approval, for recognition. You compete in a different arena for skill, for mastery, for system integrity. While others chase applause, you build capabilities. While they react to criticism, you respond to outcomes. This type of competition is invisible, but it produces the results that truly matter. When you compare your trajectory to others, you do so through measurable growth, not through public perception. One of the greatest lessons of this approach is resilience. Life will always introduce unpredictability. Circumstances change. Opportunities arrive unexpectedly. Challenges appear without warning. By committing to quiet, disciplined, systematic work, you cultivate the resilience to respond effectively rather than react emotionally. You weather storms calmly because your preparation is deep, your systems are strong, and your focus is intact. Pressure no longer destabilizes you. It highlights the strength you have already built. Feedback, when internalized properly, becomes a catalyst for refinement. Without external noise, you can analyze outcomes objectively. You can identify patterns, correct deviations, and adjust strategies before small issues become large problems. This process creates a self-reinforcing cycle. Focus enhances learning. Learning informs application. Application produces results, and results guide further refinement. The more disciplined and quiet your process, the faster this cycle accelerates. In effect, silence accelerates mastery. Momentum emerges naturally from this practice. Each day of consistent, disciplined effort adds weight to the flywheel of your progress. Initially, movement is slow, and the effort feels heavy. Yet each repetition compounds the previous one. Over time, the flywheel gains speed, and progress accelerates. Breakthroughs, when they appear, are no longer random events, but the predictable result of accumulated, disciplined work. You begin to anticipate them quietly, understanding that they are earned, not granted. Breakthrough becomes not an occasional event, but a sustained way of life. You no longer chase fleeting moments of recognition. Your emotional satisfaction stems from knowing that each action aligns with your systems. Each decision reinforces your discipline, and each day of work strengthens the foundation for the future. This internal validation becomes a self-sustaining source of motivation. You rely less on external praise and more on the quiet affirmation of consistent, deliberate action. Living in this state also teaches clarity. When you remove the need to explain, defend, or justify your work, you see your own processes more clearly. You understand which methods are effective and which are not. You recognize patterns in outcomes that others overlook. Clarity emerges from the absence of noise. Decisions become simpler, more accurate, and more aligned with long-term objectives. The world may still present complexity, but internally, your approach is remarkably clear. As you progress, you recognize the multiplier effect of quiet consistency. Every habit, every system, every disciplined action builds upon previous ones. Small improvements compound into substantial advantage. Skills sharpen, judgments refine, systems strengthen, character solidifies, and all of this occurs beneath the surface, unseen by others until the moment of impact. By the time recognition arrives, the foundation is already unshakable. You understand that quiet action is not a lack of ambition. It is a strategic, long-term method of achieving it. Challenges and setbacks no longer derail you because you understand their purpose. They are tests of systems, not tests of worth. They are signals for refinement, not reasons for distraction. When confronted with difficulty, you respond methodically, evaluate, adjust, apply, persist. External noise cannot disturb this rhythm. Pressure becomes a diagnostic tool, not a threat. This mindset transforms every obstacle into an opportunity for reinforcement, for strengthening your foundation rather than seeking superficial solutions. Over time, the practice of silent diligence cultivates a rare form of independence. You do not rely on external validation to continue working. You do not require applause to measure your progress. Your sense of competence, your understanding of your systems, and your adherence to disciplined practice provide all the assurance you need. This independence becomes a powerful asset, allowing you to act with confidence, even in uncertain circumstances, free from the constraints of opinion, expectation, or premature judgment. In parallel, you develop strategic patience. You learn to wait for the right moment to act, for the right conditions to align, and for the results of your labor to mature. Impatience diminishes effectiveness. Patience amplifies it. By practicing silence and discipline, you synchronize with the natural rhythms of effort and outcome. You recognize that timing often matters as much as execution. And by respecting the rhythm of your work, you maximize the impact of each decision and each action. Eventually, a transformation occurs in how you relate to recognition itself. You no longer seek it actively. You allow it to find you. Achievements become visible not because you advertise them, but because they are undeniable. Results speak with clarity, authority, and permanence. The effort invested in quiet, disciplined work manifests in a way that cannot be ignored. Recognition is no longer the goal. It is a natural byproduct of mastery. Your understanding of value deepens. You learn that what is seen is often superficial, while what is built quietly is durable. You appreciate substance over appearance, consistency over spectacle, and results over rhetoric. This perspective changes how you allocate energy, attention, and focus. You invest in what truly matters and ignore what does not. By doing so, you amplify the effectiveness of every action and reduce wasted effort. Silence also fosters humility. By withholding announcements, you remain aware of the work that still needs to be done. You do not overestimate your progress or your abilities. You stay teachable, open to feedback, and adaptable to new information. This humility is an essential complement to discipline and focus. It allows you to refine continuously, to improve relentlessly, and to navigate complexity without arrogance or distraction. As your practices solidify, confidence becomes internalized. You do not rely on recognition to know you are competent. You do not depend on approval to feel capable. Your confidence derives from repeated fulfillment of your own standards, from the quiet accumulation of skill and from the steadfast application of disciplined action. This confidence is resilient, stable, and independent of circumstance. It allows you to navigate pressure, uncertainty, and expectation with composure. The principle of never telling people what you do ultimately becomes a cornerstone of strategic effectiveness. It is not about secrecy for its own sake. It is about protecting energy, maintaining focus, amplifying impact, and cultivating discipline. It enables deep preparation, precise execution, and reliable growth. By practicing it consistently, you achieve outcomes that others cannot replicate with noise, announcements, or premature explanation. Your results gain authority precisely because they emerge from sustained, invisible effort. As the cycle continues, you begin to notice a deeper truth. Success, built in silence, is resilient because it is rooted in reality, not perception. When the world changes, when trends shift, when opinions fluctuate, the work you have done quietly continues to hold value. Others who built their recognition first and skill second are exposed to the whims of circumstance. Their progress is fragile. Yours is durable. This durability comes from commitment, not announcements. From discipline, not declaration. From preparation, not publicity. You realize that timing is everything. By withholding communication until results are substantial, you maximize both impact and credibility. Early exposure can dilute influence. Early explanation can invite misjudgment. Early discussion can consume energy better invested in actual work. Silent growth ensures that when results appear, they carry weight. They are no longer questioned. They are undeniable. And that is the power of restrained action over impulsive revelation. The compound effect of quiet, disciplined work extends beyond outcomes. It shapes character. Each day, you choose focus over explanation, persistence over performance, patience over instant gratification. You reinforce traits that cannot be taken away: self-reliance, integrity, perseverance, and composure. These traits, accumulated day after day, form the backbone of success. They prepare you to face increasingly complex challenges without panic, to seize opportunities without hesitation, and to sustain progress over the long term without reliance on external affirmation. You begin to see that attention is the most valuable currency. Every time you announce a plan prematurely, you spend a portion of it. Every time you explain, defend, or justify, you dilute it. By staying silent, by reserving attention for action, you leverage it for maximum effect. You invest in building capacity rather than building appearances. And this investment compounds quietly, creating advantages that are invisible until results manifest, sometimes far ahead of competitors who wasted their energy on noise. Setbacks, once feared, are reframed. In silence, you can analyze mistakes without ego. You can adjust strategies without embarrassment. You can learn lessons without distraction. This creates resilience and adaptability that are difficult to cultivate in a public, performative environment. By internalizing the work, by responding privately and deliberately, you convert obstacles into accelerants for growth. Challenges no longer intimidate, they inform. Pressure no longer destabilizes, it illuminates. Complexity becomes manageable, not overwhelming. Growth, then, is incremental yet relentless. You understand that mastery is built by repetition, refinement, and disciplined application over time. There is no shortcut. There is no substitute for sustained effort. Silence becomes the incubator of skill, clarity, and judgment. Each small decision, each deliberate act, each moment of restraint strengthens the foundation. And when breakthrough arrives, it is the logical result of this cumulative process, not a product of chance or luck. Others may call it sudden. You know it was inevitable. Strategic patience is reinforced through seasons. You learn to recognize the cycles of effort and reward, to respect natural timing, and to synchronize actions with optimal conditions. Patience is not passive. It is an active strategy that allows results to mature fully. By avoiding premature announcements, you ensure that your timing is controlled. You do not rush influence. You allow it to emerge naturally. When the foundation is fully prepared, when the systems are fully refined, when the results are undeniable, momentum accelerates silently. Each day of consistent, disciplined action strengthens the flywheel. Initially, motion may seem imperceptible. Friction is high, energy is required, but persistence compounds. Systems reinforce themselves. Habits become automatic. Skills sharpen. Decisions align with strategy. And gradually, the flywheel gains unstoppable force. Breakthrough, when it comes, is not dramatic because it is sudden. It is dramatic because it is inevitable. The cumulative effect of sustained, invisible effort. At this stage, your identity transforms. You are no longer someone seeking recognition. You are someone who acts reliably, consistently, and effectively. Your confidence is internalized. Your competence is evident. Your influence emerges naturally from results, not rhetoric. Others may seek shortcuts or applause, but you continue quietly, understanding that real achievement is built through sustained effort, not performance. This identity is stable and durable. It allows you to navigate complexity, pressure, and uncertainty with composure. Every decision reinforces the principle energy is finite, attention is precious, and focus is powerful. Choosing silence does not limit action. It magnifies effectiveness. It preserves momentum. It strengthens systems. It enables strategic patience. It allows persistent refinement. It cultivates discipline. It compounds skill. It shields progress from distraction. It ensures that when results appear, they are undeniable and lasting. By now, you understand that breakthrough is not an event, it is a lifestyle. It is continuous improvement, relentless attention to process, and unwavering discipline over years of invisible work. You have internalized the growth sequence: learn, apply, evaluate, correct, persist. You have prioritized discipline over motivation, preparation over publicity, focus over noise. You have cultivated patience, embraced feedback, leveraged momentum, and allowed compounding to work in your favor. This is the architecture of enduring success. Eventually, recognition may follow. It will arrive not because you demanded it, not because you announced it, not because You sought validation, but because the work was real, sustained, and substantial. Others may marvel, speculate, or misinterpret. You do not engage. You do not explain. You continue the process, knowing that results carry authority without explanation. This restraint magnifies credibility, influence, and the impact of achievement. You realize that silent work does not diminish value. It enhances it exponentially. Living this way reshapes your relationship with effort, time, and life itself. Work is no longer performative. It is purposeful. Time is no longer spent managing perception. It is invested in development. Challenges are no longer threats. They are signals for refinement. Pressure is no longer destabilizing. It is illuminating. You act with clarity, persistence, and intentionality. And in this state, progress becomes inevitable, not because life is predictable, but because your systems, discipline, and focus are unshakable. The principle of never telling people what you do is now fully integrated into your life. Silence is not fear, hesitation, or secrecy. It is wisdom, strategy, and leverage. It protects energy, sharpens focus, magnifies impact, and cultivates resilience. It allows preparation to meet opportunity. It allows momentum to compound. It allows breakthrough to emerge naturally. And it ensures that the results, when they appear, carry the authority of substance rather than the illusion of sound.